Hello there friends and welcome. For today's BG3 guide we have at long last a JAHEIRA build, and we'll of course be going with a fighter druid multiclass combination, just like her progression in the classic BG games from the past. With this build you'll be quite the powerful fighter mage type of character, with the best from the druid class, especially the amazing area of effect damage spells, with the great crowd control and debuffing ones as well, plus lots of summons, and a very nice temporary hit points shield. While your fighter side will increase your martial potential to the max, for more attacks per action and higher damage as well, so you can also bonk the enemies on the head with your Shillelagh improved staffs and clubs, like any good druid. Because you only get JAHEIRA somewhat late, all footage you see is on Act 3, but everything is on honor mode, so this build works regardless of the difficulty. And yes, you can still wild shape if you want. So without further ado, let us get into our JAHEIRA classic fighter druid build and guide. As I said before, JAHEIRA comes pretty late, which is actually good because you'll have a lot of levels to play around. Perfect for multiclassing, so you get everything you want from both the druid and fighter class at once, without any delay. Let's have her start as a druid first, for all the nice spells and abilities. For cantrips, definitely Shillelagh. You don't have to use this, but I think it's fun and unique for a druid. Ideally to empower the best quarter staffs in the game, because they also work with the Great Weapon Master ability, as they can be wielded with two hands. The same is not true for scimitars, which are light weapons. Besides that, just a guidance cantrip, always a good choice for dialogue checks and so on, and also a source of concentration out of battle for some gear buffs. For her stats it's pretty simple. Because Shillelagh will apply her Wisdom modifier to attack and damage with staffs, it is your most important stat, so let's start with 16. If this was the main character, you could go with 17 instead. But for JAHEIRA and other party members, there's not much of a point. Besides that, just a classic 14 Constitution to be safe, and the usual 16 Dexterity for higher initiative and some nice AC bonuses. The remaining points are up to you, including strength for higher carrying capacity. I just go for intelligence because, amusingly enough, the nature skill in this game, which is the most classic druid skill of them all, is intelligence based, unlike previous editions of D&D where it was based on wisdom. Besides that, another classic nature skill, survival. She's not really meant to be your main party face with dialogue checks and all that. For the second level we can already pick our subclass, and we absolutely want Circle of the Spores, the best of the subclasses for extra melee damage and also summons. I mean, Symbiotic Entity, I've already covered it in my main best summoner Circle of the Spores druid guide, but it's definitely one of the most stacked subclass features in the game. You'll have loads of temporary hit points, extra damage on melee and ranged attacks, and lastly, an extra ability as area of effect that only costs a reaction. Do note you can still use Wild Shape, it's just that it will turn your Symbiotic Entity off, so you won't get these bonuses anymore. As a matter of fact, if you wanted a fully focused Wild Shape druid, I also have a guide for it, but Circle of the Moon would be better, of course. It's just that then you wouldn't be a fighter druid multiclass, which is what I wanted to go for JAHEIRA. What can I say, I'm still in love with BG2. The spells I'll cover later before the gear section, but as a druid should always have any druid spell available. Level 3 is just more spells. For the cantrip at level 4, anything you want. I'll go for resistance. And defeat, well, this can go two different ways. If you want more melee power, which is what I prefer, go with Great Weapon Master, of course, as the plus 10 bonus to all melee attacks is super powerful, and at the time you get JAHEIRA you'll have enough buffs and bonuses to make up for the attack penalty. And it does work with staffs, of course, so long as you aren't equipped with a shield. If you don't care for her weapon attacks, just go for more wisdom. Even the alert feat, but by the time you recruit JAHEIRA you have a lot of gear that boosts initiative already. So I'd rather Great Weapon Master for both a powerful fighter and spellcaster druid character. Level 5 means our extra attack, but only during Wild Shape. We'll get the other one for all actions as a fighter anyways. And of course the level 3 Druid spells, which are amazing, especially Call Lightning. For level 6 I would still remain a Druid because it's when we get the unique Druid Spore Zombies summons, and you have 4 per Spore Druid. It's not that necessary, but I think it's a fun ability to have. You can of course already multiclass into Fighter now if you want, but I'd rather wait until level 7 or 8. I prefer 8 because level 7 means level 4 spells, some of which are also powerful for a Druid, like Ice Storm and the dual summons, Conjure Minor Elemental for 2 methods, and Woodland Being for the Dryad and the Wood Woad. You don't really need this level, however, so you can already get started into Fighter multiclassing right now, which will result in 1 extra feat later by virtue of 6 levels of Fighter instead of 5. I'd rather the extra Druid power, however, but that's just me. So level 8 or 7 is when you wanna enter into Fighter, with first Great Weapon Fighting of course for higher damage on average with our staffs, boosted by the Shillelagh Druid spell. Level 9 is just Action Surge, amazing for Honor mode because it stacks with your extra attack. As far as the Fighter subclass at level 10, either Battle Master, and you can for example just focus into Precision Attack for higher 2 hit chances, or Champion for higher critical hit chance. It's just that while it is true at this point you have access to all the best critical hit boosting gear and it does stack, you might prefer to have it on the main character or someone else. So if you aren't equipping it all on JAHEIRA, I think Battle Master is a better pick. Just pick the one you prefer. Level 11 means another feat, and I'd rather go for Ability Improvement and Wisdom. While level 12 means at long last our Fighter extra attack. Yes, we do get this late, but once again, you also recruit JAHEIRA late. Pretty close to level 12 even because it does come fast during Act 3 if you know what you're doing. Of course, you can also delay progression in some Druid levels to get extra attack as a Fighter first, let's say around level 10, which is closer to when you would get her, by just being level 5 Druid, then level 5 Fighter, and then you pick the remaining Druid levels, or Fighter ones, depending on what you want. I'm all about providing you with options. Now before getting into the gear section, let's just cover what the best spells for our JAHEIRA are. I already have a guide for the best spells, but it's pretty simple. For damage, definitely Call Lightning and Ice Storm, and you'll have access to both by the time you recruit JAHEIRA. Especially useful when you apply the Wet debuff to enemies first through the Create or Destroy Water spell, ideally from another character like Shadowheart as a cleric. Besides that, Hold Person for crowd control, the same for Fairy Fire when it comes to debuffing, Healing Word for extra healing as a bonus action, and of course the amazing level for Druid summons, both of which conjure dual creatures actually. Conjure Woodland Being for both the Dryad and the Wood Woad, and Minor Elemental for the dual methods. Plus of course she has her own Spore Zombies. I'd personally just spam Call Lightning at this point because of how powerful and efficient it is. By just casting it once, you can spam it as many times as you want per battle, including the same turn, with just 1 spell slot spent. Now let us cover gear for our JAHEIRA Fighter Druid. And as usual for Gishes, so Fighter Mage types of character, you have 2 ways of going. The first with more spellcasting focus, and the second for more melee damage. Once again, because you recruit JAHEIRA kinda late, very close to Act 3, well, the good thing is she'll always have access to the best gear in the game. Starting with the Hood of the Weave, of course, if you want the highest DC and spell bonus. Or just the classic Diadem of Arcane Synergy for higher damage on hit, because we are going with high wisdom. It's just that your Shillelagh spell already does something similar. For cloaks, just the Cloak of the Weave for higher spell power, the other ones don't really matter for this type of character. For armor, however, my preferred pick is definitely the Armor of the Sporekeeper, as it not only increases your DC, but most importantly, when you are buffed with the most important Spore Druid ability, Symbiotic Entity, and you always will be, you can use the special Spore abilities, especially the Haste Spores. It's only once per long rest, but area of effect, and well, we all know how powerful an OP Haste is. For gloves, just a classic Helldusk for both higher spell DC and damage. But as usual, you have other choices at this point. And the Legacy of the Master Gloves, another nice item from the older BG games, so it kinda fits JAHEIRA. Go with whatever boots you want, they don't really matter much for this character. As far as the amulet, either Amulet of the Devout for higher spell DC, but in the case of JAHEIRA, I think Broodmother's Revenge is pretty fun as well because it does come from a Druid character, so it fits her. But anyways, you can also use the Amulet of the Harpers, and JAHEIRA is a Harper. Having shield on a character like her can help you. Now as far as rings, it's pretty simple. First, the Strange Conduit ring for extra psychic damage on hit. It is very easy for JAHEIRA to have permanent concentration even out of battle, by essentially just casting the Guidance cantrip before battle starts on anyone, as it does require concentration at no cost. This way you don't have to use a concentration spell in battle for the effect to hit, of course. And I do love a nice multi-elemental weapon. And besides that, just Callous Glow as usual, which is the best for any spellcaster if you want higher spell damage. Now let us cover weapons and consumables. For weapons, it is true that JAHEIRA comes equipped with dual scimitars, one of which lets her apply her wisdom to attack rolls. It's just that for a druid, I'd much rather clubs, or most importantly staves, because you do have access to the best staves once you get her. Also, we can actually use the Shillelagh ability, which is pretty fun as a druid, and it will increase your damage, by having both the attack and the damage itself scale from wisdom as well. It is a classic druid spell as early as the first Baldur's Gate, and I wanted a build that could make use of it. So I just go for the Marco Hashkir legendary staff, and empower it with Shillelagh all the time. Don't forget this can give access to spells that JAHEIRA wouldn't get otherwise with this combination, through either the code or most importantly, the lightning special ability for, let's say, chain lightning and higher lightning damage, something druids excel at. And for shields, just a classic Catherick for higher spell DC or Sentinel for higher initiative. Don't forget that if you want to benefit from the Great Weapon Master ability with your quarterstaff, be sure to unequip your shield. The good thing is, in battle it doesn't actually cost you anything to unequip the shield. Equipping it back, however, will cost an action, so be careful with that. As for ranged weapons, it's pretty simple. Hellriders for higher initiative, unless you pick the alert feat with her, in which case she doesn't need it at all. For consumables, the best one is definitely Bloodlust for this type of character, but you can also use the Battle Mage's Power Elixir for higher spell DC if you prefer. Otherwise, just Colossus for higher damage if you want to save the best elixirs for other characters. Even Vigilance can work for higher initiative, so you equip Hellrider on someone else. Well, alright friends, so this was it for our classic JAHEIRA Fighter Druid build, back from the past with a blast. If you found this guide useful, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I truly appreciate your support. Thank you for watching, and see you next time, friends.